Hi everyone and welcome to week 2 lecture 4 of CSE1OOF. In today's lecture we are going to cover keyboard input, scanner class, screen output, file input and some tips for good documentation and style. So first is system.out. So system.out is an object of print stream class and it is used to print things on console or print things on to display it on the screen. So system.out is an object and it's an object of print stream class and it has operations. It has got two methods, two operations called print and println. Print is used to print on the same line and println is used to print on a new line. And it displays information on the output window or the console window. Now, both print and println, they take string as their argument. So they take one argument and they take the string that is to be displayed. If you give a number with print or println, it by default implicitly converts it to the string and prints it out as a string. So for example, so if the argument is a number, it is implicitly converted to a string object. So for example, system.out.println will print Fred on new line. System.out.print will print a space because a space is there, and then Federica. Okay, and it won't. So when this next line will get printed, 42 will get printed on the same line because again these both are just print and not println. And this will print out Hawaii and 5 and a space and then a O. So we'll see this example in terminal as well. So let's see. We have got same print statements here. So println Fred, print space and Federica, print 42, and then last one is Y1. So I'm just going to compile it. And it's compiled successfully and run it for output. Yep, so first you can see that Fred was printed and then on new line Federica with a space, but then 42 on the same line, and as we didn't have println here, this was printed on the same line as well, but then this was with ln, so that's why this cursor is here. For example, let's say if I just try and remove this ln, then the console $sign will be on the same line as well. So if I just make this change and compile it and run it again, you can see that the console that was here before, now it's here because we changed this ln to print. So it's printing on the same line. It's not putting the cursor on new line after displaying it. So that's the difference between print and println. Println will put the cursor on the new line, but print will be displaying everything on the same line. Now next is scanner class. This is very important and we'll be using scanner class for keyboard input in this subject, and we'll do it often in this subject. So scanner class is used to either take input from keyboard or from file. So for this one, we'll discuss keyboard first and then move to file. Scanner class has methods, instance methods that will allow you to read in an integer or double or any other types from or different types of primitive data from keyboard. So whatever user is typing, scanner class has got some methods which can be used to read in the data that user is typing or giving as input at the keyboard. So now scanner class comes under util package. So whenever you use scanner class, you need to tell the compiler where to look for that class, and it comes under util package. So you need to import java.util.star every time you use scanner class. If you use a scanner class and if you don't import this package, then it's going to give you an error saying undefined symbol scanner, because it was not found, like compiler wasn't able to look for it anywhere. So that's why whenever you use declare scanner class, it's important that we use an import util package. Now, how can we declare and instantiate a scanner object? Just how we discussed this in our lecture 3, previous lecture, that in order to declare an object and instantiate it, so the example that was given there was rectangle object name equals to new rectangle and then calling the constructor. Same thing applies for scanner class as well. So scanner is your class name, keyboard is your object name here, and then new is where you are instantiating it, and then new scanner calling the constructor. And as we want to take input from keyboard, that's the reason we are putting system.in here as an argument, because we want to connect our scanner object, which is keyboard, so that it can take input from user. Now all the instance methods that are defined by scanner class can now be accessible using the object that we have created. So the object name here given is keyboard. So we'll be able to use all the methods of the scanner class using this object as in object.method. Again, you can give any name here. This is just an object name. So instead of keyboard, you can give KB or any other name that you like. Now next int and next double are the two methods of scanner class which are used to read in specific data types. So next int is used to read an integer from the user, and next double is used to read and double from user. So you need to be sure that the user input is either an integer if using next int, and it's a double if using next double. If the user input does not match the method that you have called, then it will result into an exception, and the exception that will occur is input mismatch exception, and your program will terminate. So exception is something when your normal flow of your program gets interrupted. So if let's say you have called a method next double but user is entering a string, then it will create an input mismatch exception. More on exceptions will be in intermediate object-oriented Java, but we might just give you a brief introduction on exception maybe in week 12 or week 11 once we finish all the basics. Now an example of this on how to read data from user and what if you enter a wrong input. So you were meant to enter something and then you enter a wrong input, and how the exception can occur. So this is an example, and I'm just going to take this example in terminal and we'll see what happens. So let's say VI time converter. Okay, so now just font bigger. So this program is to calculate total seconds given that user is entering hours, minutes and seconds. Now again, your class name and your file name should be same. So my file name was time converter, so my class name needs to be time converter. And I have declared my scanner. So scanner is a class, and then as I'm using scanner, I need to import util package. So I have imported a util package here. And keyboard is my object, and I will be using this object to call all my methods. Now first thing is I want to ask user to enter the number of hours. So this is just a printing statement asking user to enter number of hours. And then once user will enter number of hours, which will be in integer. So I'm using keyboard.nextInt to accept that integer, and I know that it's going to be an integer, so I'm storing it inside an integer to which I'm calling it hours. Same goes for minutes. I'm asking user to enter number of minutes, and then again it's going to be an integer, so I'm using next int and storing it inside a variable called minutes, also for seconds. Then I'm calculating total seconds using all the inputs that I've taken from user and applying the formula, and then I'm printing that total seconds here. So as we are seeing here, that user is meant to enter 3 integers because the methods that we have called is for 3 integers. So let's say if we compile and run this one. So enter the number of hours. I'm entering 4, 5 and 3, and the total number of seconds is this one. So that means we have entered everything correctly and the program is giving us output correctly. Now let's take a second case where I'm supposed to enter an integer but I am entering a double. So then you can see that it's interrupting my flow and it's giving me an exception saying input mismatch exception, because I was supposed to enter an integer, but I have entered a double. So that's where the input is mismatching. One is double and another one is integer. So that was an example to show that if you enter something wrong, then it will interrupt your program and it will generate input mismatch exception. There are so many exceptions: file not found exception, array out of bound exceptions, and string out of bound exception, but all this will be covered later. Now, same thing as I explained, that if user is entering all the integers, the program will give you expected output, but if user is entering something else, as in double, then exception in thread will, so it will interrupt your flow. Now next method of scanner class is next. So this next method is will be used to accept a token from user, so a string, but it will stop at first white space. So it returns the next token that is found in the input stream up to a white space. So no matter whatever user is entering or whatever the data type is that user enters, the token will always be read as a string. So even if user is typing integer or double, it will be read as a string and it will be treated as a string if we have used next as a method. This is an example to it. So program to read in a response from the user as a string. So I might just have this program in terminal and we'll try different combinations and see what's happening. So just the main method. Okay, so I've copied this main method here and let me explain this. So what we are doing is we have declared a scanner and keyboard again is our object and equals to new scanner system.in. Now as I have declared scanner, I need to import package. Right, so now I'm asking user to enter system.println and do you like science fiction. So see, as I mentioned that next will stop at first white space, you should use next only when you know that user's input is going to be just a word or a letter. Okay, if let's say if it's a 2-word, then it will just take the first word. So let's say I'm using next here and I'm just printing out user's response. So I'm going to compile this now. Okay, so do you like science fiction? I'm gonna say yes. and it's printing it as yes. But just for an example, let's say if I'm going and saying yes and no, then it will just take yes. Why? Because next will stop at first white space, and this is the first white space. So if you know that there will be white spaces and you have more than one words in your user input, then you should use next line, which is next one. I'll explain that. But if you are sure that user is going to enter just one word or one token, then you should use next. Now next thing is, let's say here, if we go to next slide, let's say if you just want to read the response from a user as a character, as in just Y or N, okay? So we saw that there is a method in scanner class for next int. We know that there is a method for next double. We know that there is a method for a string. But there is no method called next character to get one character, okay? Because we know that there is a method from where we can get a character out of string, and that method is character at. This method was introduced in lecture 3. So let's say if I'm going to this program again and I just want one character from this response, so either Y or N. So I still take input from user as a word, but then I convert it. So I want it as a character ch. So I convert my response, which is initially word, and just extract the first character out of it. So if user is entering yes, then character at of 0 will give me Y here. And if user is entering no, then character at of 0 will give me N here. And then you can just print out that response as in system.out.println your response was, and instead of full string, I'm just going to print ch. So let's say if I'm entering yes or maybe no this time, then it's just printing me N. Okay, so if you want to read a response from user as a character, then this is the only way. So you read it as a string and then you extract the first character or whichever character you want from that string. So as mentioned, user was entering yes, and then we extracted the response as Y. So next line is when user wants to enter a string with more than one words or more than one token. So next line will return the next line of the text in the input stream up to a new line character. So it will read the new line character, but it won't print it. So the new line character is removed from the input stream when you are using next line, but it's not included in the returning string. So when you are printing the string that you have read, you won't be able to see new line, but the new line character is removed from the input stream when you are using next line. The problem will arise when you have two new line characters back to back. So of course it will read and remove the first new line character, but there will be a problem if there is more than one new line character. Now this is just another example of using next line. So again we have declared a scanner here, and this is the object new scanner equals to system.in. You need to import a util package here, and then you're asking user to enter given name and family name. So you know that there are two different names with a space in it. So we can't use next because next will stop at first white space, and that's the reason we have used next line, because it can read full line up to /n. And then it will stored inside a string because of course it's a string, and the variable name is name here. So then we are just printing that your name is and whatever name user has entered, and we have stored it inside the variable name. So the output of this will be enter your given name and family name, and once you are entering it, it will print the exact same name on the screen. Now that was all about taking input from keyboard. Now taking input from text files. Of course, the methods are same. So we still have next int, next double, next and next line when reading from text files as well. But the way we connect is different. So before we were connecting it to the keyboard, now we need to connect it to the text files. So the scanner can also be used to read in inputs from a file. The only difference, as I mentioned, is the way it's declared and instantiated. So before, when declaring scanner, if it was keyboard, we used to say scanner keyboard equals to new scanner system.in. So we were attaching system.in because we were taking input from keyboard. Now this time we want to take input from file, so we need to attach an object of file class, and that's the reason we are creating an object of file class here. File class comes under IO package, so whenever you use file class you need to import IO package as well. So now this is file class, this is object to file class, and you are instantiating it, and this so file class constructor will take whichever file you want to connect it to the scanner or you want to open. So here in my case I want to open a file name called myfile.txt, so that's why I've given that inside the constructor of file. So now I'll be connecting this file object to my scanner object. So I'm saying scanner file input, again this can be any name, equals to new scanner, and instead of system.in, what I'm doing is I'm just attaching this file object which I created here to the scanner. So let me just discard this one. I'm explaining again. So in order to connect your scanner to the text file, first thing you need to do is to create an object of file class. So first we are creating an object of file class here, and the file that I want to open is or connect is myfile.txt, so that's why I've given that name here. And then I'm declaring my scanner, and my scanner object's name is file input and equals to new scanner instead of system.in. Now I want to connect my scanner to the text file, so that's why I'm putting my file object instead of system.in object here. So in that way now your file input will be responsible from reading from the file called myfile.txt. It's always a good practice to close your scanner once the use has done. So let's say your scanner name here was file input, so you just go and say file input.close once your scanner is no longer needed. Now this is an example. So it says that read the first 3 integers from the file called myfile.txt, add them together and output the result to the screen. So whenever you come across this kind of problem, the first thing you need to make sure is, just in this subject, that your file should exist. So first thing I'll do is I'll create a file called myfile. So I'll create a file called myfile.txt. So vi myfile.txt, and it will open a text file, and it says that assume the contents of myfile.txt are 23, 19, 2, 14 and 78. So this is your text file. Now it says that read the first 3 integers from this file, add them together and output the result. So this is just your text file, and then you just need to okay, so I'm just writing and quitting this one. Now let's say I am creating a Java file called maybe read from file.java. And first thing will be read from file as in my class name. and public static void main. Okay, now this is very important step. What you need to do is you need to connect your this text file to your scanner so that you can read it from there. So first thing is to create a file object. So I'm gonna say file f equals to new file and my file name here. So my file name is myfile.txt. So that's how I know that which file I want to connect or which file I want to open. And then I'm going to use scanner file scanner equals to new scanner, and I need to attach file object. So I'll go F. Make sure that whatever object name you are giving here, that exact name should be here. Now my file scanner will be responsible to reading from file. So let's say so let's say my first number from file, I can read it like file scanner dot nextInt, because I know that this first one is an integer, and it says in the problem description that read the first 3 integers. So I am reading it from this file scanner, which connects to this file. So I'm reading it from the file that I created. So the first one, I'm reading first number, and I need to read number 2 and number 3 as well. So I'm reading second number and assigning it inside number 2, and reading third number and assigning it inside number 3. Now all I need to do is to add them together and output the results. So I'll just go and say result equals to number 1 plus number 2 plus number 3, and just system dot println result is, and I concatenate it with my variable result. Now 2 more things before we go save it, compile and run it is I am using scanner class, which is inside util package, and I am using file class, which is inside IO package. So I need to import both the packages here. Import java.util.star. You can also just say scanner instead of star, and then import java.io.star, or if you just want to import file class, .file is fine. Alright, so now I'm going to compile it and run it and see. Yes, so this is one of the things that you need to take care. It says that unreported exception file not found must be declared to be thrown. So usually normally we do not have to handle any errors, but file not found exception, file not found is an error that we have to handle. So the program knows that what to do if there is no file. More on the exception will be later. So let's say here we need to say compiler that if this file is not found, what to do. So in that case it will throw an exception saying IO exception, or you can also go file not found exception. I'm just making it generalized and just writing IO exception. Now if we compile it, it's not okay. So the other thing is, if you write throws IO exception, that is again inside IO package as well. So either you need to make this as a star so that it includes all the classes, or you can just say go for file first and then also include IO exception. Yeah. So now compiling it, and yeah. So the three inputs were 23, 19, 2. So 23 plus 19 plus 2 is 44. So our output is 44. So the program read from the file and then add the three integers together and outputted the result. Alright, so this is the same sort of program that I have written in terminal, and I have explained you already. So again, for scanner class and for file class, you are importing two packages here, and then you are telling which file you want to connect or you want to open, and then this is the scanner classes object, and you are connecting file object to the scanner, and then that scanner object is responsible to reading from file. So it's reading three integers and then it's adding three integers and storing the value inside total, and then you are printing the total out. So we already got 44 as a result. So you can see that the output for this program is 44 as well. So now this is another program. So what is the output of this program considering different inputs to the file? So the inputs inside the file are different, and we are going to see all the cases. So there are three cases there. So the program here is, I've got it in my terminal. It's called agent details. All right, so we need to open a file called agent.txt, and it has got agent number, name, and we need to print the name and agent number then. So let's say okay, so what we did is we have declared the variables, that is agent number and string name here, and then we have got a file class, and agent file is our object name, and agent.txt is the file that we want to open and read from. As we have used file class and scanner class both, then we are importing util package and IO package here. Now we are connecting our scanner classes object to the file classes object that we created there, and then now agent scanner will be responsible for reading from file. So if we just go and see our cases here, so it says that agent.txt file should contain this thing. So I'm just going to create agent.txt, and the inputs are 86, which is an int, and then max smart. So an integer, and then there is a string. Okay, so now I'm going to compile agentdetails.java and run it for the first case. Yeah, so it read both. It did read name and it did read agent number as well. So if we see Java file here, what we asked for, so we read our integer first. So here we can see that the first thing was integer, yes, so it was read properly, and the second one was next line, so yes, that was read properly as well, and we were able to get the exact correct output. Now this program being the same, so reading first integer and then reading next and then using next line. Our case is now, if we open this text file, and we have got 86 in one line, and then another line is max smart. So compiling and then running again. Now here we can see that we are not able to get the name of the agent here. Reason being, and this is very important. So if we see our Java file, you know that the first thing that we were reading was next int. This thing worked because it was all on the same line, right? So we know that it was an integer, and then the next was next line. So it read integer first, and then it was straight away next line. So it did read this whole name, and then it stopped at /n. But with this case, we read our integer first, and when we gave this one, that agent scanner.nextLine, instead of reading this, it read new line, which was /n. Okay, so if we just go and print this one here, we'll find out. So let's say if we just give name1 equals to agent scanner dot next line, and we print name1 here, then we'll get correct answer. So let's say I'm compiling this one. Yeah, of course. So just need to declare it. And I'm running it now. So now you can see that it's printing max smart correctly. Okay, so what happened there was, when we read our first next int, it did read 86 and it was all okay. But then when we wanted to read the name, which was in the next line, this agent scanner.nextLine read the /n, which was after 86, and not this max smart line. Okay, so you need to take care whenever there is an integer and then you have something to read in the new line, you need to escape this /n by using an extra next line method. Okay, so this should be just like this if you want to make it work. So you know that this is an integer, and then you need to clear the /n. So this is for clearing the /n, and then you can just say that your name is going to be here. Okay, so this is must. When there is a next int and then there is a next line after on the second line, then you need to clear the /n using an extra by calling an extra next line function. So then if we just go and print the name, it will give us correct output. Right? Okay, so next and last case is to have all the three things on three different lines. So max and smart. And let's just say that our program is as same as previous. So now compiling and running it, we'll again do the same thing. So it will print out 86, but it won't give you anything in the name. Reason being, again the same thing, because after next int there is /n, and that next line which you gave there is taking /n and not max smart. So let's just say that we clear that /n. Now what will happen? So then it will just print max, because here again it's /n, and you remember we said that next line it will stop at /n character, so it will read /n character but it won't print it. So that's the reason it's just printing max and not max smart together. So those were the three cases that that were slightly different from each other. Now this is again the same thing. So firstly, when we had all the three things on the same line, we were able to, so 86 was inside agent number and the full name was inside name, so everything printed well. In our second case where we had 86 a slash n, that means a new line, and then maxmart on the second line, it was all good till we read 86, and then when we were supposed to read a name, it just read /n and it was not able to read maxmart. Yeah, so now we have documentation and programming style. So if you want to have a good programming style, or if you want to cultivate a good programming style, you need to make good use of your comments, white spaces, you need to indent your code properly, and you need to use identifiers and other class names, variable names, etc. with proper convention. And we'll see one by one each. So your program should be easy to understand and read. So whoever is reading your program needs to understand it properly, and that can happen only if your program is written well and it's easy to understand. Now, two types of comments, we discussed this in lecture 1, is single line comment and block comment. So inside the program, you put comments because you want to give explanation to your piece of code, or you put comments on the beginning of your files to say what this file does, or beginning of your class to say what this class does, beginning of each method to say to give a short description about what this method is and what it does. Inline comments, wherever you find that your code is complicated and it needs explanation, at that time you can put in inline comments for that piece of code. So white space characters are blanks, tabs, or new line characters which you use in your code, but any white space that is not used to separate keywords and identifiers will be ignored by the compiler. So compiler will only consider those white spaces which are used to separate keywords and identifiers. So why do we use white space? So just to make our programs easy to read, and there are two main uses of white spaces, which is to indent your code and to blank lines to separate your parts of your program and make it more look good and more readable. Now, indentation is a good way to structure your program. So when you have a very big code and when you have nested loops or a statement within a statement, then indentation helps a lot. So every statement within a statement should be indented, and sets of instruction that are related should be made to look like a group. So everything should be grouped together, and there should be a nesting. So let's say if there are nested loops, then it should highlight properly, and your indentation should be consistent throughout the program. Conventions for identifiers, variables, class names. So class name should start with uppercases, that uppercase characters, and your other object, method names, variables, attributes, all those should start with lowercase letters. You should follow camel case convention. So let's say if you have two words, then you have first word starting with lowercase and then second one starting with uppercase, just how it's mentioned here. So shoe size, so shoe S is lowercase here and size S is capital here. Named constants, so you know what are variables and how to assign value to a variables. Constants are something that you know that are not going to be changed frequently or throughout your program. So by convention, your constants are always written in uppercase. So full variable name, full constant name will be in uppercase. Again, constants are the ones that you think that are not going to change throughout the program. So if you have a constant value, for an example, let's say my rate is going to be 0.2 throughout the program. I make it final, and the convention is it's written in all upper cases. Static attributes, again, constants are usually defined as static attributes, class attributes, which you think that are not going to change throughout the program, and all the instances of the class will have the same static attributes. So static attributes belongs to the class and is shared by all instances of the class. And to access the static attribute is going to be your class name dot operator and then that attribute name. So class name dot and static attribute. So math is a class name and pi is its attribute, as you can see. So math dot operator and pi is static attribute, because we know that the value of pi is not going to change. So that's why it's a constant, it's a static attribute there. That's it for lecture 4. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have a good day.